Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Free Seas initiative is most perceived as an infrastructural of geopolitical project. Yes, it is also a region of considerable importance from the perspective of constitutional and law European integration. The initiative brings together 13 countries: Austria, Bulgaria, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Greece, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Hungary. However, these states do not share a uniform constitutional trajectory. Austria has functioned as a state democracy since 1945, while Greece returned to democracy in the mid-1970s. The real transformative experience of the region lies with the remaining states, which after 1989 begin to rebuild their constitutional system after decades of authoritarian rule. The transformation profoundly reshaped the judiciary. One of the first formal steps in transforming the judiciary was to establish it constitutionally as an autonomous branch of state power with special protective guarantees. Interestingly, in some states, elements of constitutivity were maintained, such as Supreme Courts in Estonia, Romania, and Bulgaria. Latvia went the furthest, reinstating the 1922 constitution and treating the Soviet period as a temporary suspension of sovereignty. Regarding institutional similarities, all countries adopted multi-tier court systems, usually 3 levels, except for Romania, Hungary, and the Czech Republic, which have 4-tier models like Austria. In all 3 Seas countries, courts are organized hierarchically. The Supreme Court serves as the highest appellate body, ensuring consistency in case law and in the interpretation of the law. Speaking of difference, 3 main areas can be identified. First, several countries, following the Austrian model, established separate administrative court systems, distinct from ordinary civil and criminal courts. The system culminates in a Supreme Administrative Court in Poland, Lithuania, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Croatia, and Bulgaria, while in Greece this role is fulfilled by the Council of State. Second, while most countries established separate constitutional courts, there are notable exceptions. In Estonia, the Supreme Court itself carries out constitutional review. Greece, by contrast, uses a dispersed system. Any court can declare a law unconstitutional, but its formal annulment occurs only in exceptional cases before the special Supreme Court. Third, mechanisms of the judicial governance differ across the region. The ministerial model, common in Austria and the Czech Republic, places court administration under the Ministry of Justice while maintaining strong protections for the irremovability of judges. The Judicial Council model, which dominates the region, is based on bodies of judicial self-government responsible for nominations, promotions, and disciplinary matters, and often also handling administrative functions. Their influence varies across the region, particularly strong in Bulgaria and Romania, but relatively weak in Estonia. The court service model present in Latvia focuses mainly on managerial and administrative tasks with limited influence of judicial careers. Appointments, promotions, and disciplinary matters are handled by separate of independent bodies, such as specialized nomination commissions. The principle of this model is to clearly separate administrative responsibilities from education, ensuring that judges are not directly involved in managing the court system. Finally, Hungary employs a hybrid model combining elements of judicial councils with aspects of a court service system. It is built around two bodies: the National Judicial Council, elected by judges and responsible for oversight, and the National Office for the Judiciary, which has broad powers over court administration and judicial career. A central figure is the president of the National Office, appointed by Parliament, who wields significant administrative and personal authority. The system thus blends judicial self-governance with a strongly centralized political appointed decision-making body. Please note the institutional arrangements I have described, especially those related to judicial governance, have been repeatedly revised over time. Some adjustments came through ordinary legislation, others through constitutional amendments driven by both internal pressures and external expectations. EU accession played a particularly important role as an external pressure. The 1993 Copenhagen criteria required stable institutions guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. Although the EU did not impose a specific judicial structure or model of judicial governance, the accession process created strong incentives. States adapted their judicial systems to meet rule of law standards in order to join the Union. After joining the EU, the states become co-lawmakers within the Union, fundamentally altering their relationship with Brussels. As a result, the EU lost its main leverage, the promise of membership. At the same time, the organization of the judiciary remained a national competence. EU treaties also did not provide a single model of judicial governance. Judiciary transformation then entered a new phase. It became a phase of constitutional renegotiation. The focus shifted from creating institutions to debating their role and the boundaries of constitutional sovereignty in increasingly integrated Europe. In this context, many states undertook significant judicial reforms, citing the need to improve efficiency, transparency, and judicial accountability. These reforms responded to real or perceived shortcomings in the systems established in the 1990s. Most countries avoided radical purges, instead relying on gradual generational turnover and careful review of qualifications. This slower approach left some public distrust in the courts, while also giving political actors a reason to constitute reforms and complete the transformation. In response, EU institutions intensified monitoring of these reforms. This led to tensions. Member states claimed full autonomy in organizing their judicial systems. The EU in turn emphasized that previously agreed integration standards still needed to be respected. The first and most visible area of tension concerns who actually shapes and appoints judges to the key courts, both the Supreme Courts and the Constitutional Courts. Constitutional courts are particularly sensitive because they define the boundaries of legislative and executive power. The second area of dispute after the composition of the key courts concerns the independence and powers of judicial councils. Created in the 1990s, these bodies were meant to keep the judiciary independent from political influence and to protect judges' autonomy. Over time, however, concerns emerged about limited accountability and an overly corporatist culture. The third area of dispute, alongside judicial appointments and the powers of judicial councils, involves mechanism for disciplining judges. After 1989, these mechanisms were designed mainly to protect judicial independence. Over time, however, concerns emerged that this model had become too closed and could hinder effective accountability. Thank you very much.